Hey guys, this is Courtney from Willow's Bloom, and this is Dylon, our resident historian, and Ricky, who is our resident astrologer, along with me. And why don't you guys go ahead and introduce yourselves?
Ricardo Zivar. I'm fellow 15-year astrologer. You can catch my channel, The Infinite Soul, and check out my data through Instagram and other resources.
Yeah, my name is Dylan. I'm the host of the Matrix Breakers podcast. I cover geopolitics and the questions of spirituality, like I'm here now doing, as well as financial news and healthful and health and wellness news as well.
Awesome. And we are here today to talk about the Uranus North Node conjunction, which is happening really soon. And Mars will be joining it as well. So this, I think, is a really big deal. Ricky was like, we have to do a video on this. And I was like, we also have to get Dylon on. This has some weight to it. So if it's a little bit longer, that's why. But yeah, let's go ahead and jump in. You want to start us off?
To express this to the audience, this is a different kind of video from me and Courtney and even Dylan. We made a video all together on the Pluto return for America. And what we found is there's just so many impactful events right here on out for the rest of 2022. And things look to be either getting serious or intense or like very transformative, if you want to use that word, that I find it best that all our knowledge bases and the kind of things that we tune in and bring in as principles in our work, even to have Dylon here that does a lot of historical research, seems pretty profound to talk about the major events that are leading into 2022. So buckle up, grab some popcorn. It's probably an intense amount of information, but we're actually just going to open up and have an open discussion. So we invite you to chime in the comments or anything there.
Please do. All right, so let's go ahead and just lay down the facts first. So we are about to experience the Uranus North Node conjunction. It's pretty close right now. Actually, do you know what degree it is right now?
Right now, Uranus is at 18 degrees, which even that I want to kind of get into. I actually believe this is the final degrees Uranus is going to go to. So we've never seen this. We've never reached this far before it goes retrograde. And the North Node is at 20 degrees. So they're pretty close.
Yeah, so they're really close, and they are about to be exact on July 30th. And then Mars will also be in the picture, which will be exact
Bam. 18,
on
18, 18.
the 1st, on August 1st. And this will kind of be hanging out, but all these planets will kind of be hanging out. Mars will move on a little bit, but they'll be hanging out for like 3 months. So this is something that's really sitting with us. And it's an uncomfortable energy that we have to address because the Pluto return can have that similar cyclical large transformation happening to all of society. This has a similar effect, but it can feel a lot more volatile.
So what Courtney's referring to is we have the Pluto. There's a lot of combinations we're going to get into that are like really profound within world history. But even right now, we have a Pluto return happening for America, pretty much literally exact throughout this month into August. So there's like all these combinations happening at the same time. 4 planets retrograde. It's crazy show out there. So basically, we're going to kind of bring that up to you and even get contrast maybe with Dylon on impacts that might have happened last time Uranus was in the same position. So, which was around the late 1930s.
Yeah. So really quick before we jump into the history, who is this going to affect and how is it going to affect you? So it is going to affect everyone because we all have Taurus in our birth chart. So you want to locate wherever 18, like plus or minus a few degrees of Taurus is in your chart. So if it's in like the first house, it's going to affect you much more profoundly. It's going to be much more noticeable, maybe affect your appearance. Like whichever house it falls in, the topics of that house will have the most revolution, the most change. So that first of all.
I want to bring a preference that anyone that has fixed sign energy at either 18 in that realm, give it about a 5-degree orb or so, probably be majorly affected by this the most. But let's bring some context and start here. Is Uranus is a planet that is an outer planet. We only discovered it 5 years after the American Revolution. So I believe that's like 1782 or something like that. And this is representing the societal revolutions of change that happen within society. So Uranus is a collective planet, and it rules chaos and revolutions because it literally wants to create different breakthroughs for us to research and have other areas that we can receive abundance. And so when Uranus is with the North Node, which is a karmic ecliptic point, we're actually going to be having some of the more major breakthroughs that can really shake up things for people. And since they're in the sign of Taurus, what does Taurus represent? It's going to rule money, finances, raw earth material, land, the way we transport goods. And also Uranus can also rule superpowers. Like, and when I say superpowers, I mean like big world leaders in the alliances that happen on the world stage. So when this hits the North Node, which is a very karmic point, and especially, says Courtney, says Mars is also meeting there, it's a very combustible, transformative time that can involve resources, money, goods, and even just what's stable and foundational to you in itself.
And it could be a really frustrating type of energy because Mars is coming in here with an already unstable, unpredictable, kind of volatile planet Uranus, and it's stimulating it. It's causing frustration. It's causing like a little bit more of chaos. Like it's essentially setting off, like putting gas into the fire. However, they are also in a sign, Taurus, that likes to be slow, consistent, and stable. So imagine when you think about a house, the foundation of the house, and the foundation obviously wants to be stable. Well, this energy is coming to shake up that foundation. And so it can be really uncomfortable. Things that we want to be secure are not secure. Things that we want to be slow moving and to kind of have a grasp on where they're headed and some sense of control and security, all those things are being sped up or becoming unpredictable or out of our hands and chaotic. And so that's why it's super important to know where this falls in your chart. So if you start to see this kind of unpredictable change and things just flying at you from left and right in that area of your life, you can know, okay, this is what this is about. And Uranus being the higher octave of Mercury, it is helping us essentially like evolve as a society. It's the kind of like the consciousness of the collective, the mind of the collective. And for whatever reason, we have to, Ricky, you said this earlier, and it was so perfect. It's like we have to evolve through the chaos. So that's really essentially what's going on. Like we have to kind of like mix up the pot, like stir it up in order to actually see what's working and what's not working anymore.
Can I mention that?
Go for it.
So in conversation, just to preface, me and Ricky are roommates, so we get to have dialogue about this kind of thing all of the time. And the way that I study news and current events and geopolitics, it's just very relevant to the things that he studies. And there are a lot of reasons why people study astrology, or there's so many levels of interest as well to deepen your level of understanding in astrology. However, he mentioned a few things to me, and I'm the layman here who doesn't quite understand the intricacy of astrology to the depth that they do.
No, you will.
And so he mentioned a few things, which is one that Uranus rules earthquakes, and that's kind of the weather pattern, or the idea that, you know, the earthquake is, for me, I immediately thought, well, an earthquake is one of the natural disasters that you actually cannot predict. They have these seismic meters that have been, they can predict within maybe a few minutes, like 20 or 30 minutes, they can predict. So that's like the best we've got, though.
Right.
I mean, and that's why Japan and other places like these on the fault lines, they can't predict these earthquakes. And that was interesting how you mentioned that. Like a tornado, I don't know where tornadoes are on that spectrum of which planet they
Hurricanes,
align with.
you can check weather and heating patterns. I think you could get hurricane season down, but
right, you can predict these chaoses. They're still chaos. Hurricane is still chaos, but an earthquake is also chaos, and it is literally rocking the foundation. It is rocking the very foundation of the crust. So that was something that really kind of spoke to me when he mentioned that, and as well as, of course, the idea that Uranus is like spinning, and its orbit is not even like what we orbit. It's like the vertically are orbiting.
its declination's like 120 degrees or something.
Yeah,
it's like
it's like
almost
at an
fully
angle. It's like a weird
almost
ass
fully upside
yeah,
down.
and before I even, which is the element that it represents, which is uranium. And if anybody knows anything about uranium, you can build. It's the most chaotic element. However, if you contain it, you can build a nuclear energy, which has been a lot of conversations recently of how, like, of course, like nuclear being kind of scary, and it sounds scary, but like at the end of the day, if you contain this element and create nuclear power, it's essentially an infinite source of power.
Mm-hmm.
But it's containing a chaos, knowing that it could erupt, or the changing pattern in any kind of a chemical sequence could actually destroy the entire area and like radiate the entire zone. So it's like it's very interesting, the element consistency, and then the idea with the weather pattern.
I want to share this. So me and Dylan get to shoot the shit all the time. And like basically from Virgo perspective to Sag perspective, I'm always looking out big picture, and he brings this like micro. It's just so awesome to get the contrast of data that's happening in the physical as much as we have an astrological lens on it. So we get to like have these conversations all the time. Why not bring him up to basically when he's talking about World War II, I'm doing my data about like what the heck's like happening with the whole Uranus thing. So it's just awesome to bring this into conversation, to share this. I want to use one true example. Uranus in 2010, the day of, it entered into the sign of Aries. Now, to give you a picture of what Uranus energy looks like, it created an earthquake in the ocean by Japan, and it hit the Fukushima nuclear reactors that created one of the biggest, they don't talk about it enough, biggest nuclear disasters in history. But by Uranus principle, there's no way we could have predicted that. Not even the best astrologer ever, because Uranus is like inconceivably from an equation we can't even calculate. And so it's like, oh, it was an earthquake that happened. Oh, but it made the tsunami. And then the tsunami and the damage, it hit a nuclear reactor. And then it's like, and it was like, holy good God. Like, you know, and Aries is kind of like that symbolism has a lot of interpretation, but just to give you an idea, that happened the day of, and I'll never forget that, to use as a Uranus effect. To bring it back to the present, we have Uranus and Mars meeting on the North Node, and we got to share something. Last time that Uranus was here in Taurus, it's considered fall. It means it's the worst position for Uranus to be, and we'll break that down. But this was in the 1930s, pretty much around the time before World War II is about to begin and the rise of Hitler and all those world powers that are happening. Mars is also detriment in Taurus. It moves really slow. It's like a freight train. It takes a long time to get going. So the things that we're trying to embrace for stability are going through an earthquake. And they're karmically related to you getting to the grass is greener on the other side, because North Node in Taurus, believe it or not, as insane and doomsday is this all wants to look, in South Node Scorpio will make everyone feel like the world is ending or what, like blah. North Node Taurus reminds us as the medicine is actually that the grass is greener on the other side. So what transmission are you going to go through? And I don't know if you guys, I'm going to use real cute movie preference and send it back to y'all, but I don't know if you ever seen the movie The Croods.
Yeah.
It's this caveman family that lives in a cave. And one day, I think an earthquake happens, and it actually ruins the cave where they never leave, and they actually go into the jungle and open up to what life is about, basically. And I'm kind of using that one little experience because this is very Uranus North Node Taurus, is like where you're so comfortable in what you think is stable is actually shaking up, so you might go find some better territory to embrace with. So just kind of want to like leave that there.
Yeah, it's
like,
so that's just like the absolute perfect movie if you want to understand this energy. And I also wanted to, like, when I was thinking about this earlier this morning, I was like, what's some imagery of like what would represent this? And your example just reminded me, like, yeah, you were there. We were tubing. And there was like this little place where everyone jumps off of, and there's one kid in particular who just like could not get the gumption and the courage to just jump off this cliff into the water. Everyone's cheering him, and he looks terrified. Like, he does not look like, oh no, like he was so scared.
He's about to cry or pee his pants.
He looked miserable. And yeah, so essentially he eventually finally like leaped off. And to be honest, he was like swimming back. He still didn't like look very happy. I think it still scared him a little bit. But what I took from that situation was like, okay, the universe might just have to kind of push us off this cliff edge. We might not enjoy it. We might not even enjoy it right after, but what we learn from it, who we become because of that experience, like this kid will then go on to remember this years from now, that time he jumped off the cliff. And like, he might not enjoy it in the moment, but he'll be proud of himself for making the decision to move forward, which is really all we can do in this kind of energy. It's like the universe closes all the doors, opens one, and pushes us through. And we have no option but to move forward. And so the more you resist the change, which is why these planets are in detriment and fall here, because Taurus resists change, the more you resist change, the harder it will be. And many of us will resist a change because of the sign that it's in, because it's scary to have something so foundational and so important for our security and survival become inconsistent, unstable, and change. Like, you don't want to not know where your food is coming from tomorrow. You don't want to know if the roof is going to collapse over your head. But it's like, we have to move through this as a society, this breakdown, this chaos, in order to understand ourselves a little bit better and hopefully not repeat history, which we're going to talk about in a second.
I want to share one statement. I want to throw the mic to Dylan because I'm really interested to hear what he's got to say around this time period, because he's like a awesome walking encyclopedia of knowledge and connection of human nature. But something about Uranus is like, I wouldn't insinuate to think that you need to worry that some earthquake's going to happen, but I will just say that like Uranus with the North Node is kind of like, this needs to shift. And I can also think of like potted plants that have had the same dry soil forever, don't want to go through a change, but like, hey, you're not really getting the best of what you possibly can get. And this is why the North Node, we are overdue for Taurus energy. We need Taurus. We have not had North Node in Taurus since like the 80s, I think. I'm not getting the date perfect, but we need to remember our value and remember that life can be better and remember that we're able to receive something better. And if it's got to shake up the pot for you to go get it, it's probably the medicine we've all been looking for. And if it looks a little bit chaotic and destructive, look, there is a higher purpose to this. I cannot speak it to such, but Uranus plays that principle. And I had a personal experience in my life that was a car accident that wound up being quite benefic in its properties. When it looks like destruction, believe it or not, something is coming in to make better headway for you to have better stability, better resources, better value, and connection to your environment. But to throw it to Dylan really quick, I'm just kind of curious. Last time Uranus was in Taurus, it was kind of that time around World War II.
So it's 1934 to 42.
1938. Pardon me. But we can also kind of look in that realm because Uranus, pardon me. Yeah, you're correct. Yeah, like Uranus is in Taurus through that whole stretch of time. So that whole transformation probably through the 30s is very revolutionary to like, a lot of humans are like, things are changing. We went through the Great Depression. We're trying to like find what is valuable. So yeah. I know we kind of talked about economics and the currency, but yeah, man, do you have any shares on that?
Yeah, so to be very fair, obviously there's a lot going on in the 1930s all over the world. However, you could say that, and this is another cycle that we can come to understand. If you ever want to read a really interesting book, it's called Changing World Orders by Ray Dalio. And it goes into discussion around how different, empires and then later like kingdoms and then later nations have kind of transformed over time and had the world reserve currency, for example. So in the 1930s, England was the pinnacle of financial stability. They were the world reserve currency. The pound was, and also, of course, in America, we went through 1929, the financial crash there, and then around this 30s era, we are experiencing in America the Great Depression. And there were a lot of different issues, especially around the things around Taurus, what he is explaining, which is like food, what we think is food. I mean, literally, there was no growing periods. There were massive fires. Like, people think that some of these fires over the couple of years, no. They were like almost 10x what they were in the 1930s. A very dry era. And I'm not sure if weather pattern has to do with that, but just imagine it's dry, it's arid. Literally the climate was just different. And so that's why they had bad crop yields in that period of time, in that decade. So food scarcity was a real thing. And people who lived through that time, especially in America, and then all over Europe, especially Germany, which we'll get into, you can imagine that you went from 1920s, roaring 20s, like prosperity and just money and capitalism and all the things, to the crash of 1929 and into the 30s. And what was the biggest thing that was happening, especially during economic downturns, are criminal activities start to increase. Criminal enterprise start to increase. People start to disavow and disassociate with the rule of law and the structure that actually contains civilization and civility. And so we can see a lot of that happening today. I don't know if y'all have been recognizing a lot of crime surge has been occurring all over the this country and all over the world because of the pandemic, and the rising crime is always a result of poverty and always a result of economic downturns. So imagine organized crime. So it's not just crime and like petty theft and things like that were happening. It was actually organized crime. So the mafia got their power, the Italian mafia in particular, got their big power in the 1930s. And so imagine a criminal enterprise that is using these loopholes in the system to bank off of the corrupt and uncivil way of people's livelihood. I mean, people were gambling heavy, they were drinking heavy, and the mafia had all of this, I guess like you could even say a monopoly on crime. They were making so much money to where the Italian mafia in particular, this group of families, was as wealthy as Microsoft or Apple would be today. And they were totally a conspiracy theory, totally a conspiracy. Like if you even said I feel like there's a criminal network, an underground network that's out here making money from all this criminal
crazy
stuff.
Alone. There's
People literally said that's a conspiracy, or that's like that. You're crazy for even thinking it. So I want you to imagine that here is in America, and we can obviously go back to like, again, why was that? Why was criminal activity so heavy, and why was it okay? And then the breakdown of society is because these foundational things, like money, like value. Also, 33 was when we got off the gold standard. In 1933, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, he took us off the gold standard. This was in order for us to kind of balance the budgets in America. He made it illegal for Americans to own gold. And there was a gold rush. And this was what they originally said was to count gold. They wanted to count all the gold in all America, but they also made it illegal, a 10-year prison sentence if you were caught with, I think, over $10 worth of gold, which was a lot of money at that time. But, again, if you were caught with this gold, so you had to turn your gold in to the Federal Reserve, by the way, the Federal Reserve Bank. And so
what year is this?
1933. So, but that was in still 33, but that was chaos, people getting prosecuted and all throughout the 30s because they owned gold. Imagine you owning a home or owning land or something that's an asset that has always been an asset, a universal asset. Imagine owning that becomes a crime. Think about that. So, like I mentioned with the mafia and how criminal activity was starting to like ramp up, you're now a criminal just for owning an asset. Very Taurus energy.
Which has been thousands of years owning gold.
Correct.
The normality,
Yes, and then to finish off with this, and I would want them to kind of chime in on this as well, which is Germany, if you can imagine. World War I, I mean, there's some sympathy I have for Germany after World War I. Like the Weimar Republic was completely just destroyed, and England had taken control of a vast majority of it. It was just really screwed up. But again, it was kind of their fault to begin with. However, with that being said, the Weimar Republic was collapsing officially in the 30s because they had kind of a bounce back period. The Germans are some of the hardest working people, and they actually ended up doing okay. But then they ended up eventually their dollar collapsed in the 1930s as well, and the Weimar Republic collapsed with it, and that was the rise of Hitler, which was also a very powerful force in Germany, which was wonderful for Germany. I mean, at the time in the 30s, it was Hitler was on Time magazine. That's how well known Hitler was. I mean,
you blew me away, bro. He showed me that Hitler was like on. If Americans don't know this, he was like Man of the Year on Time magazine.
Correct. He was on the
cover. He was really like adored by a lot of people.
Exactly.
He was rescuing Germany from their financial.
Totally,
they were plummeted.
The Time magazine article was written about the recovery of Germany and how the Weimar Republic, the Wehrmacht, I forgot what their dollar was called something, so whatever it was called, it literally became meaningless, just meaningless. And so this rise to power in this chaos was a rise of this man, Hitler, who just encapsulated the German people. And to be fair to Hitler and to what he was doing, they built a whole new idea, a whole new system in Germany. I mean, that's why they were going to take over the whole world. Think about this. Transportation, he mentioned. The Autobahn was built in around that 1935, 1936. Big project, but it was a big highway system, never seen before in the world. And it was big enough, obviously, to move military weapons and supplies, as well as having planes even landing. That was the whole concept, to have planes and cargo land on the highway itself. So the way of transportation was changing because of the car and the innovation of the car at that time. So, I mean, while that's happening, and then going into like, of course, 1939. 38, 39 was Neville Chamberlain it was the Prime Minister of England, and Neville Chamberlain is literally Joe Biden, like literally just a very weak-kneed, very kind of like not so aware person of the geopolitics of the time, and he just wasn't the leader that needed to face what Germany was becoming, this behemoth. And so if you can imagine, like, there's also England, which was this most powerful world reserve currency, like undisputed champion of the world type of thing. And it was being led by a weak leader. And Germany and the Nazi Party saw the weakness in that. And that's why they were able to take the initiative, take over Poland and start to invade Poland and all the things. And this is the rise of Churchill exactly during this time period. So it is a really chaotic place. And like to go into all that history is interesting. But I'd love to get some feedback from what y'all think about it.
Yeah. The one thing I want to remind people is I saw this image in a textbook, and I just don't know if people recognize this, but World War II, the currency for Germany, I remember kids were bringing wagons full of money, like wallpaper. They were using their currency as wallpaper. That's how meaningless the dollar was. So it's just kind of recognizing where the value system is for Americans, because that was South Node Uranus. This is now North Node Uranus time. But in that part, all these things are changing. And here we're removed for the gold standard. We're having to absolve things to really find what is valuable. So like, I don't think some of these methodologies work. We're not advocating Hitler did the most ethical of things, but there's also this area where it's also kind of fixing that area where there's kind of loopholes in the value system. So I just remember that image of just like a child coming with a wheelbarrow trying to buy, I'm imagining a soda pop, and like how meaningless the dollar was. And I feel the American dollar and fiat currency should be also being recognized on that track record. Know your history involved with that, because now Uranus and Taurus is going to wake up. Hey, what is valuable? And I just think that's kind of going up with the goods and the famine and all that other stuff. Uranus is rocking the boat in that essence, but I'm kind of curious if Courtney wants to share.
Yeah, I feel like it's so important to think back to why someone like Hitler, who nowadays we see and we're like, how could we have as a people ever let someone like that come into power, kill people, like the atrocities, the level of control, the manipulation, like the propaganda. How could something like that happen? And you think back to the circumstances of not having value in your finances, to having, world powers shifting and being unstable, to not having food, And I think this is the whole idea of Taurus, is that once we have our base needs met, Taurus can then get not philosophical necessarily, but a little bit more so. It gets expansive. Like, what are we going to put meaning and value into in our culture and our society and everything like that? But if we don't have the meaning and value and security and all those things in the most basic fundamental areas, we lose those higher values because there's a survival instinct that kicks in. And so the fact that Uranus is on the North Node right now is giving us more of an opportunity to maybe have similar situations present themselves where we are having food plants burned down, having infant formula be contaminated and really hard to come by, have economic collapse and recession and stock market falls, like actually having a huge strain on our resources, just like we did at that other point in time. However, now that the North Node is here, we have a potential to make different decisions. We will likely still experience that scarcity mindset, that survival instinct that could make some people resort to crime or could make us kind of lose our humanity. However, the North Node hopefully can give us enough energy to move forward in the right direction and to reconstruct our value system so that it's not completely based off of basic needs. And we can learn to do things differently this time, where we can be self-reliant, which is Taurus energy. It's very scary when the system begins to collapse, when you are reliant on the system. We all are reliant on the system. But if we can become more self-reliant, which the North Node in Taurus is trying to help us do, then the degree of chaos can be mitigated by our own ability to be in some level of control over ourselves. And so I feel like that is like the really big difference here in history, is that we are seeing elements repeat itself, but the North Node is giving us another alternate way so that we don't just keep getting stuck in these same cycles over and over again.
I really love what just Courtney dropped in. To the context, what's so funny is during that time, like I was sharing a little bit, Uranus was by the South Node in Taurus. We actually needed to go transform things. This is backwards. South Node is in Scorpio. So a little bit of context. When the South Node's somewhere, it's on a hyperdrive. And the problem is, though, Scorpio sometimes, and it's the lower vibration of the South Node, can get us to grasp for things for some unknown security. It's gripping onto jobs that you know suck, but you're just getting it because you need the job. It's hanging on to relationships and situations because it's a death grip on something that's bringing you the security. North Node Taurus on a societal level is trying to get you to go pick the top shelf things in life. Mm-hmm. And if Uranus got to quake up what you think has already been stable and kind of kick you off the dry riverbed into a flush garden, it will do that. The problem is, though, the funny thing is I've noticed transits with the North Node not always are necessarily fun, but they are always inherently, in my eyes, highly positive in the long run. You know, we had a Venus retrograde on the North Node. There's a lot of relationship dysfunctional things that happen, but it got me to see the truth into really what was going on. And to be honest, I'm now a year or two from that transit, so grateful about what happened, you know? So the thing is, if you stay stuck in a placement where we're going to stay with the fiat currency, we're going to stay with the situation. A lot of people there's a lot of crime that's happening and a lot of like gun violence and stuff. I want to point this really is to the expression of people do not feel secure. I think, you know, I'm not going to use a Joe Rogan phrase, but he really was like, people leave some like meaningless, upsetting lives that are striving just to survive. And Taurus is not about that. This is actually about you receiving the good stuff. Some people I've heard in a chart with South Node Scorpio, North Node Taurus, they might be given cash and they might not even know how to receive the cash. They might even shove it in their mattress. I'm not even kidding you. Literally might shove cash randomly in their vehicle to absolve receiving how good it is. So I'm going to argue to people back home, viewers, are you letting yourself receive the really good things that are there? And I would say that all this stuff is like, you need to remember your value. So when you get to a societal level, is this really the best that there is? Is this really what is really here? Because Uranus wants to shake it up and like lightning, nitrogen, awaken the earth within. Where are you planting yourself? And so this is kind of an exciting time, but I also just see it getting a little hairy because we're all run on this system that needs to go through change and transformation for us to move to the next level.
Yeah, if you're pretty much experiencing this feeling of like lack or, you know, obviously shaky ground, I mean, everyone is going to the gas pump and is like, wow, you know, that's the thing. And he's mentioned before about Uranus being a collective experience, at least because there's a lot of probably planets that can reflect more internal experiences.
It's a super outer planet, so it's affecting everyone as a society.
Right.
Yeah.
So everyone is experiencing these kinds of changes, which is kind of like the best part about it, is that we're all in this together in a way. But it is still chaotic, and it is helping us question the way we do life and the way we do energy and the way we do food, right? The way we go about even geopolitics and things like that. Again, everything happening with the U.S. dollar and all these things. Because I didn't even get into like current events, which we can dive even more into. Yeah. But yeah, like, you know, everyone that is experiencing it together. However, by like learning this right now and knowing that this will pass eventually, as Courtney was mentioning, like we have to know that it is chaos, but there's definitely going to be some place where you'll have a major change. And I think that ultimately you'll be able to create a much better life. Like this is definitely what we all need as a society.
And I think the important thing is to be aware of both elements. Like this is affecting all of us. We see it in our society. It's kind of overwhelming sometimes, but then also looking at your chart, what house is this falling in? And doing a deep dive into the value and the meaning of that area of your life. Like am I truly living up to my potential in this area? Like, what do I really, really want in this area? Because right now, there is so much energy ready to just kind of explode the status quo that if you don't intentionally decide what you want to replace what's there, it's almost like you're at the whims of Mars and Uranus, which can be destructive and uncomfortable. But if you are like, this area of my life is going to undergo change. This is what I want. And then when things start exploding all around you, you're like, I have a plan. I know where I'm going. I know my higher value system in this. And you have some kind of like goal or vision to keep you moving forward. So there's a very personal relationship with this planet that you'll also be experiencing. So not letting yourself just get overwhelmed by the fact that society is kind of going through this. And I mean, you can get overwhelmed, whatever. You can do what you want. But like, if you also want to take advantage of this on a personal level, you'll dive into where this is affecting you.
I have a question. So for Courtney, where is this falling? Like, what house is this for you?
This is in my 8th house.
Which is?
So I personally, the biggest things that I tend to experience with 8th house, because I have Venus there, is quite a lot around like fear of betrayal and trust and intimacy, like being vulnerable with others, as well as things related to inheritance and like
legacy.
Yeah, like money from, exactly. Legacy, but also like financial money from others. And that's been like the biggest way that's represented in my life. So I could see those things becoming really uncomfortable because the 8th house tends to bring about crises. Is one of the hardest houses to have something like, oh, it's already chaotic. Let's put that in the house of a crisis. Great. That sounds great. So yeah, I'm probably going to be not very happy for the next
in those
couple
areas
months.
In particular. What about for Ricky?
So I'm willing to share there. I want to say this for the viewers out there. I want to speak from my own personal modeling, but I also want to relate this to a societal level because that's even more difficult to kind of pinpoint. But for myself, as a Leo rising, this is my 10th house. And to be honest with you, I've been kind of like, here's the thing with Taurus energy. If you're going to go make an apple pie, intense silence, you want to go pick the best apples. And this is a Taurus principle where people need to own their value. You don't throw yourself a sad violin and go get the sad mopey apples. I'll make a pie out of this. No, like if you're going to make jewelry, let's say you're going to go buy your beloved's wedding ring. And I guess more a masculine potentially thing, but like, you want to go buy the best gemstones. You want the ring or the value that it holds its essence. And this is very Taurus, Venus, Earth. Having Uranus in my 10th house, it has changed my disposition of who I am and who I can be over and over and over again. And I'm going to be honest, I've been the little kid because I have some Scorpio energy of like, no, I like this thing. I don't want this to leave. I like this thing and I'm happy. And it's like, get rid of it, Ricky. No. And I get rid of it. And then you put a luxury pillow next to me. I'm like, okay, never mind. This is getting okay. Like, so like Uranus is a medicine that I advise people to receive more than they think that it's bad. It's like, it again, and I know you have 8th house, and 8th house can potentially be a little bit racking, but to be honest, it's about energy you're receiving too. So it's like, are you receiving the best too? And I just want to share that. But like to move forward is just, and I know I said like that's a play on words, but 8th house is about like joint contracts with people and alliances and situation that you're receiving. So like there's these energies that can rattle us up. But I just believe like I'm going to keep using this analogy, but like honestly, any plant, I had a money tree. And if you take a plant from its original housing, it's going to go through shock, the plant. So when you put it into this fresh new soil, it's going to take some moments to get adjusted, but then you realize there's more you can grow from. There's more you can connect from. There's more that you can actually do. If you got a big wave of money, are you going to still live the way you're living your life? Like if $2,000 actually, or I don't know whatever money amount it would be, but something that allows you to actually co-create it better and discern and how you connect to the world itself. Uranus wants you to connect to the world on a higher value system. Boom. And
Boom.
so when that like hits everyone collectively, it's really kind of looking like, are we literally as a nation, as a world, just stringing by the seat of our pants in survival mode. Stop it. Uranus, I also wanted to share this a little while ago. Uranus takes us to the heavens. Ruler of Aquarius, it literally takes us to the heavens. So even when you think as chaos is that Uranus is, Uranus also rules scientific discoveries, ramifications of things that we did not even know, technological advances, like like learning gunpowder and using gunpowder to make roadways through things. We didn't even conceive of that concept, and now we have a gateway to making it happen. I don't know what could happen. That's the magic
aliens,
of it.
then.
That's the aliens, man.
Actually, I did want to say, like, aliens may become more apparent.
Could come up
or
more.
like become more visible. Yeah, that's all I'm saying.
A different connection, though. The biggest principle I want to say is that Uranus as fall in Taurus will test humanity.
Oh,
We're gonna test humanity. I'll throw it to you in a second. Like we literally, it's an unstable world. There's nothing stable. If you think there's something stable, there's nothing stable. This astrology for 2022 is magical, but you gotta, like, I don't know why I'm getting like in dream lapse, like Indiana Jones. You gotta keep moving because the floor is moving behind you. And if you're not moving to higher ground, the things are shifting, and it's for the collective to wake up to that principle. And, you know, sometimes this can involve certain resources or just basic things that we need: gas, food, water, whatever. I don't know, but whatever it is that is a resource and value to you, those things are going through a shift to move us and upgrade to that next level. So there's a push. At the same time, this is also allowing you, where are you planning yourself? Because that's going to be shifting.
Okay, so I want to talk about some science for a second.
Boom,
No,
please.
Well, I wonder. She's pulling out my chart. Actually,
I was watching AI stuff just all day.
I was
too.
wondering about the whole thing, but just so you know, I think in the last week, literally in the last week or two, a company called CERN is creating a vortex. And I am not an expert on this, but they are doing certain equations right now. They're trying to open up a portal. This is very tied to during the 30s and early 40s, just like same way, Hitler was creating something called the bell. And there was this bell vibration, and the way it works was it was inverting itself. And they had like two objects moving in opposite directions for like a sustained period of time. The point is that when you do this, they actually can reverse time. There was this really crazy math around like reversing time or trying to warp time.
That is so cool.
And yeah, like that's in Germany, like Hitler's Germany, and not these Nazi projects are really, really fascinating. I'm not going to get into like Operation Paperclip or anything, how we brought these scientists over here to America, but. There's a company called CERN. Anyone can look this up. And the things that they're doing, they are trying to literally last week. They just announced they're going to go ahead and try to open a portal or whatever. And I just find that to be like real, like weird. Like I personally don't know. Should we be messing with the metaphysics?
Let's do it.
Of like our reality, you know? And then like, how does that go on? Okay, but
I saw some meme of some girl that was like, "Yes, I trust myself with the photon." Portal. It was like a giant tube, looked like something out of Iron Man or the Hulk or something. And it was like, I think that's what it was. It was just like bending time. I don't know how I feel about all that, man. I don't even can't even comment on it.
As someone with Uranus on my moon, I personally feel like these are just inevitable discoveries. Like, we are curious and we're going to explore, and we're probably going to fuck a lot of shit up. But like, what are we just like not going to try stuff? Like, I don't know. I feel like there are probably a lot of negative consequences, but I'm just like,
you know what? Screw it.
We don't know what's going to happen. It could destroy the world. Let's try it.
I feel like that was the birth of America. Like, let's do it. Like,
let's just do it, guys. Let's just go to this.
Uranus does have a tendency just to break free from limitations. So like anything that's upholding that and you don't feel stable, I don't know.
Okay, I got it.
That's wild.
CERN, this company.
Isn't that like the Hydra Collider or whatever?
CERN is firing up its large hadron collider at record energy levels in search of dark matter. And if anybody knows about dark or antimatter,
I'm learning it's difficult to understand.
Essentially it can be used as a weapon system as well. I mean, and once you open this up, right, it's like almost like a black hole. it is that's why they call it antimatter. It warps and sucks things up. So anyway, I just feel this.
I take back what I said. Let's
This is
not do
weird.
that.
Let's
Yeah,
not do
like,
that. I'm not.
They just announced this. This is news from 2 days ago. They're like, we're moving to next energy. It's like that one guy you ever seen Spaceballs. He's like, go to ludicrous speed, and like it's just like ludicrous speed. That's kind of what they're doing at this little and that happened like last week or anyway. So it's just a lot of interesting things that could be happening in this very moment. But
Wow.
she wants to do her chart real quick just before we.
Do
Cool.
I? I'm just kidding.
Do you?
Oh, I wanted to know.
No, you-
So, okay, in Placidus, you will have this whole thing happening in your 7th house of relationships.
Mm-hmm.
In whole sign, it will be 8th house like me. So, yeah, relationship area, other people. That means that sometimes even all this stuff could be happening like to other people in your life.
Sometimes it's what you receive from other people too. So it doesn't inherently need to be romantic. It could literally be any human outside
close relationship
all
that
relationship
you choose. A relationship that
to connect
So
with.
somebody, okay.
So it could be me or Ricky going through something like with you, or we're going through something individually, and it just like because you're in like some type of relationship with us, you're impacted.
Right.
Or it could be like that the dynamic is impacted, or it could be also something to do with like law and like contracts and things of that
Me and
nature.
Courtney are gonna get filthy rich, and we're gonna spoil you with cocktail drinks. That's what's gonna happen. I'm just kidding.
That's right.
But I mean, like Uranus 7th house is gonna be upgrading this field of where relationships and things are coming from the outside. You're rooted to things, and the relationships that you have are like having some.
This is
like,
going to be
I
on your
literally-
south node, and it's going to be trining your sun.
which is very positive, but it will like your ego might go through advanced upgrades, like things you didn't think, archetypes in parts of yourself that, oh wow, now I'm like in this archetypal field, like now I have this badge of honor in this kind of area, if you will.
Well, yeah, because I was just telling Courtney even yesterday, I was like really dissecting my relationships and like friendships and what I want to create, and even trying to make friends, quote unquote, especially because I'm still new here and in Colorado essentially, but like to try and make friends, you have to go through chaotic situations to like even see what can possibly come from that. That's how I met Courtney,
True.
So I don't know. That's kind of cool. I just wanted to like ask that question to us as well, because I think it helps the audience like understand if like maybe someone else has
Yeah.
something, a placement like
It's
I do.
trining your sun in the 11th house of friendships and community. So it's like that big change is going to positively impact your sense of community in Colorado. So it's like you'll start that, like, I don't know about you, Ricky, but I feel like I'm starting to get glimpses
Yep.
of what's to come. You
Yep.
know, it's like like Uranus is unexpected. There will be things you can't predict, but maybe you can understand kind of how you might ultimately be impacted overall. You might not understand the exact circumstances,
Right.
but if you're intuitive, if you're like in touch with yourself, I think you'll start to see these things now. Like, this is what I want. And then there will be some weird changes that happen that the universe is like, all right, you said you wanted that. Boom. Like, let's make that happen.
I'm not trying to whirlwind the audience, but for the other 3 planets, and we're all going retrograde, is receiving all these things, they're very much in tandem. And for you, they're in the air houses. Your sense of community and resources and people are going through this earth upgrade, basically. So it's like this really cool, like different resources have amended themselves. You were just growing corn a while ago. Now you have like 5 different crops in the land, and you're like, oh wow, I'm actually can now distribute and sell this. And I'm obviously using a material goods analogy, but yet when it's connection to people, you can really stand in different places. And I could see that. With Jupiter going to go retrograde in Aries, different archetypes and egos. We're all going to get an ego upgrade to whatever that looks like, or downfall if someone's not in alignment. Saturn retrograde. I'm just throwing this out there for whoever receives it. But like, yeah, what we've been connecting on, like that plane has been on that frequency, and now we're starting to receive that. So I kind of like foretell a lot of positive change for people, especially in their internal environment. It's like the exterior needs to go through a big change, but inside, there's things cooking, and I see that Uranus trine the moon is the sun, trine the sun.
Trying to
That's a really awesome alignment where like you get to connect with society and maybe evolve your personal ego, like your sun's ability to connect with humans. And when Uranus gets to trine it, it's like a beautiful connector to people. I find that is the combo if someone was born with that makes friends with the highest big players, the high rollers at the party. For some weird reason, attracts all those 3 or 4 people and knows what to say to make real action happen. So Uranus is like lightning, going to connect you to people that can increase one's ego, open up someone to another department. But it seems about friends, community, and relationships. Yeah.
And really quick, having like any planet around 17, 18, 19 degrees of any of the earth signs will mean that this whole Mars, Uranus, North Node will be trining those planets. So you're likely to have change that has maybe an easier flow of like, okay, unless the planet is really like Mars or Saturn, sometimes the easy flow of energy is still emotionally challenging, but generally there's going to be like an uninterrupted flow of that change. If you're having a square, like I'm having this square, my Chiron and Mars, not excited. But if you're having a square, it might present more tension in trying to create this change. So if you have, a fixed, like any fixed planets in the...
For a second, hold on a second.
Do your thing. Yeah, I was just... Trines are cool. Uranus will do that, but even squares, like I'm getting squared by Uranus, and I'm kind of cool with it. I'm kind of down for
But
it.
Uranus squaring like Chiron, like I'm really not excited about Chiron. Like
Why
any
you
Chiron shit always hurts.
Tripping on that, girl? Like it always hurts. Guess what? That shit heals you for a long fucking time.
I don't want to feel pain.
You want to know what a Uranus trine square Chiron could look like? Someone that lost their arm gets a biotic arm. And it actually happens. I argue the squares are more powerful. They just say like associated that with bad.
Well,
and it's not always the case.
It's just uncomfortable, and the reason why I
like
am so like black and white, like I literally just talked to my therapist about this. It's like
point the dog.
It's really Luna's my therapist.
He's so happy, like yes, I love you. You talk to me about these all day long.
Her breath. Oh my god. Good thing I'm sitting closest. But my therapist and I were just talking about how it's like so fucking uncomfortable for me to like feel, for me to experience like challenging emotions. Like it overcomes me and it overwhelms me. And that's why I like when I see certain things coming up in astrology, I'm like, oh, I'm gonna feel a lot. I'm just like, ooh, like I don't want to go through that. I don't want to. But then it's like those are the things that are training me to actually open up, to be vulnerable, which is what this whole 8th house thing is about anyway. And I think that I didn't really finish what I was saying before, which was just that if you are experiencing or if you have any planets in the fixed signs around 17 to 19 degrees, you will get a square to those planets with Mars and Uranus in the North Node. So you'll be experiencing a little bit of tension to have that breakthrough. And it will, like what I always say with squares is it requires some kind of like creative solution. It requires like more effort, I feel like, for things to resolve itself.
Trine is simple, and we don't need to do a whole aspect course right here, but basically earth to earth in a trine, you don't really need to work too hard. Uranus is going to kind of work its magic on you. I mean, I will use the earthquake analogy, and like you realize that at the crust, holy cow, there's gemstones in here. What the heck? And then start collecting those, and like something opened up for you. That's like a trine effect, like something benefic happens in such a way, or an ease of flow. A square, though, in my opinion, is actually where something is truly changing. And when it's in fixed energies, I'm talking about this may change your life forever.
Yeah, and it's harder.
Dun, dun, dun. So it's like if you're thinking a square, and I use the biotic arm because like let's say someone at Chiron, you said you had this alignment, someone's like, I don't have an arm or I feel wounded here. I actually have to get like the day signing the loan, do the thing, and I got a biotic arm now. That's a beautiful placement. There's things that can suck. But like, I don't know, maybe it says my Jupiter in Scorpio. That's like a little bit devil's advocate of like, it's all going to work out. But like, to be real, I know you're going to manifest what you've focused your hindsight on manifesting as a full principle I will own to the day. Some squares though are going to be just more difficult because if there's like, this is your stability home structure that needs a change. I don't want this. Your ego is getting really, it's going to suck. I won't lie. Uranus in the 4th house, that's difficult. Like means you're not, that's an emotional disrupting place. That is very much probably my little cave that I love is going through an earthquake process and I need to go find a new home. Now, the home might be the best thing you ever did, but I can imagine that sucks for anybody. You know what I mean? And I use the fourth house because it's an emotional,
It's a
very
sensitive
sensitive place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think having a square in particular with fixed signs, there is an immobility already to a fixed sign. There's like this steadfastness of like, I have this really ingrained aspect of my personality,
It's part of you.
resistant to change. And then there's a square that's like, nah, bitch, you're going to change that shit. And it's like, I've been trying to change it. And then this whole situation erupts. And it's
now.
like, it's now or
now
never.
It's changing. Like,
Yeah.
in the present versus I want this to change. When a Uranus comes to square a planet, it means, oh, it's happening now. Like,
Yeah.
it's actually happening. So those are the things that feel intense.
Yes, exactly.
But yet you leave it's like leaving the mental fixation. Like, I want things to change, and now they've shown up, and you're like, you know, like, but it's, to
Ricky's
me,
an actor.
that's I am like, I just embody that moment that you're going to experience that actual change. And when the transit's over, you're going to look back and be like, wow, I just went through all that.
Yeah.
Thank God. I got the surgery. I pulled the needle out of my foot. I got rid of the toxic relationship or something. I'm not saying I went through that, but like, that's a huge thing with Uranus and Taurus for a lot of people. South Node Scorpio. That's a huge thing. And we're in the eclipses of Scorpio and Taurus. We are going through life won't be the same after 2024, in my opinion. But
Can I add the more like current events thing? Because like,
Yeah.
I think that everyone is experiencing these like radical shifts and changes. However, also because of everyone experiencing this sort of collective decline a little bit, especially like inflation and like things that are, again, the tangibility of things, the infant formula, like, what? This is my baby and I don't have food for that. But it also, guess what? That moment actually helped breastfeeding become like another thing that was like, why did we actually divorce from the thing that was real? And I know that there's some people
I
who
have a
can't
lot
breastfeed.
to say about that.
Yeah.
Like,
But
I don't know about
also there are people, I saw this thing going around even in that chaos, was like how to make your own baby formula. And it was like really actually simple ingredients that were organic and healthy and
And then I
decent.
also read articles was like, do not do that.
Yeah, well,
So,
again, like,
Again, proceed with caution because Dylan is not a mother. But
For sure.
he's,
and
you know,
invalidate the man that does research, but of course no one's questioning.
but the point is like, even in that circumstance though, like, it's almost like returning to what was normal back then, right? Like, again, we've had babies for ever since we've been alive, and there's
All the
been
time.
some level of feeding these infants that was very attainable and simple and not so difficult, and so it kind of helps us recognize the simplicity of things, and like, we don't actually need this structure that is trying to force us into their own, it's the renegades, the innovation that comes from the chaos is fucking awesome. It's evolving through the chaos. Like, it's exactly what it is. Like, the financial system, like everything that, like, people have this for whatever reason. People go to their jobs, they go and get their 401ks, and they think that little piece, and then Social Security, I mean, what a joke. Like, they take a piece of their paycheck and they put it like some government fund that's going to pay you when you retire, and then you take another piece of your paycheck and you put it into the Wall Street, and no one's winning besides the people, the Wall Street, the investing, the hedge funds there, and the government never really gets to pay that out at some point, and life expectancies are less, blah blah blah. The point is like, the Wall Street collapsed. Like, if you just look at your Apple, like, it's all red. Everything's red. Everything's just, if you look at month long, year long, everything's going down. But yet people, maybe you don't, but a lot of people in the normal world, they believe that when they buy a stock, they understand that, there's some risks. However, when you buy a U.S. bond, is now decreasing. The inflation on a U.S. bond, if you bought a U.S. bonds are every 5 years and 10-year terms, and foreign governments buy U.S. bonds in order for them to use it for trade. That's what we're doing with the world reserve currency. The U.S. bond market has now started to collapse. So you think you're like, okay, and by the way, you can put your money in U.S. bonds and not get it taxed, for example. You can avoid taxes legally by buying U.S. bonds. And so but again, you don't get your money back until 5 or 10 years, depending on the term. The interest you get back is like 1 or like 2% interest. But inflation is 7% a month. So people like the foreign
filling
governments
up this much while it just
draining.
Right. It's like you got a hole in your gas tank and you keep filling up and you're questioning what's going on.
Yeah.
So like that is the concept of what people are. So the Wall Street market falling, that's going to fall and come back up and kind of have its own flows. And these 30-year flows are more positive. Like the stock market grows 30%, blah blah blah. The whole Wall Street gambit. I get it. However, when the U.S. bond market is collapsing, foreign governments who believed in the country of America, they're looking at it like, we need to reorganize the world. And to kind of top that off there is a changing world order. If you want to learn about this, YouTube Changing World Order by Ray Dalio is a 42-minute video. I made Courtney watch it and she was like, nah. But the point is like, it's very educational, explains how world orders change, and it goes through culture, innovation, education, like all the military, all those things. However, what we're witnessing now is I've been talking about this on my podcast recently, but we have like Russia and China and then Brazil and India and South Africa. They've actually literally had conferences, meetings with the heads of state, not like their little secretaries of state, not their little ambassadors. No, heads of state, which is very important geopolitically.
Holding hands, writing agreements.
You could even type this in right now. It's called BCIS or something like that. It's
I've seen the images.
Brazil, India.
Yeah.
So it's these massive, large countries coming together, and they basically are changing the world order. They have organized and said, look, we're going to get off the dollar. They're now trying to buy the yuan, and they had just announced last week, they just announced a new world reserve currency that they're going to start using between trade. And we're talking, it's not just these countries. They're going to get Africa on board. They're going to get the Middle East, Saudi Arabia. The petrodollar is essentially going to die. This is like America's Pluto Return. It's happening right now. Like, we are experiencing this transformation, and the world is watching, and other nations are watching. And these are not good nations. Like Russia and China, Chinese Communist Party is the most destructive organized crime syndicate ever. And then Russia, the oligarchs there, and like all the old Soviet Union, communism, and all those things is not a good thing. And for them to organize and be like, America has lost its way. It's gluttonous. It's like not even productive anymore. They don't even produce anything anymore, but yet they're leading the world. And then you've got like our world leader right now, it's just kind of like, this is a declining world power. We in America are a declining world power. And we all have to kind of like wake up to that and recognize that these radical changes are going to help elevate. But in America especially, we need to start holding on to real assets. That's why people are buying up gold and silver and land and farmland. People are, I don't know if you've noticed this, but on social media especially, people are more interested in farming and raising animals and having a family, like doing random stuff that's like actually kind of normal, like rural agrarian normal that was once normal. And now we're moving away from being metropolitan and kind of the idea of what's that, metro, just being very metro, being very city-like, and again, relying on that subway to get you where you need to go. We're relying on that bus, or relying on just
We've been domesticated, man.
Right. We're domesticated in the cities, and it's the smart city grid. They're trying to build us. But then the consciousness, what I've been saying, collective consciousness, has been like, actually, I want to grow my own garden, and I want to do things that are natural and organic and that like give me peace, and I want to just be out in nature. I mean, we get to experience that in Colorado, and we get to resonate with it a lot. However, I've just been seeing that as a collective consciousness happening as of recently, but just threw that.
I love that you just went into all that, because some of the biggest stuff, that was really kind of like the heart of it all, of things I've been thinking about, and Dylon just so beautifully articulated that. But this is very much to the Taurus aspect of things, of everything you just said. Taurus is simple. Taurus is not too complicated or having to be all glitter glam kind of stuff. It's actually like, hey, what do we need? Land, food, clothes. When you said the breast milk thing, I mean, we can't get into all that, and I know that probably mothers are put some weight on them with the baby formula. But if you got to think like 100 years ago, if you got breastfed, you're well off. And if you didn't, like, go suck it up, Jimmy, and go like
A lot
plow
of
the
women
field,
can't
like, you know.
produce breast milk.
So
A
hold on, I'm
lot.
not in opposition to that. I'm sorry. I understand that. I understand that. I'm just speaking on it's the naturalistic place of going through things like organic.
neighbor's door, you know,
We've
ask
actually
for salt.
glamorized organic. Let me put this in perspective. People have glamorized organic as a luxury thing. Organic is just normal.
Yeah.
Organic means there's no weird, like artificial anything. It means it's just an apple. You know, it's just organic. And that's kind of very Taurus.
bougie.
Is Taurus. It's not bougie. We've made it bougie. We've
You
done
want
this
a real apple?
BS
Bougie.
stuff. Yeah, like and that's the funny thing about it though. We've made it like it's bougie, like it's some California like crazy next level stuff, whatever. I love the Californians, but whatever. Like my point is like is just this different nuance where it's like Taurus is getting, can we just go back to the rudiment meat and potatoes basics? Just go back to what it is, like the gold
What about
standard.
the vegans, huh?
The gold standard.
Tofu and potatoes.
Oh my gosh. Go ask your ancestry if you're vegan. But that's my I love you guys. I'm not against you. So my point is though, just what Dylon's saying is like we're kind of getting back to the rudiments of like what is really foundational and what lengths do we need to go to just get our basic needs met. Gas, food, like security, housing, land, whatever the heck it is. So like those basic rudiments that make the world go round are things we need to resource. I mean, we used to think cows was the first currency and Taurus rules the bull. It's just kind of funny to think on that, but like where is that foundation for you and what are you hanging on? Because I really think we're going to have a swap in that market. You know, I would love to see a currency backed by gold or Bitcoin or something that's rudimentally more foundational in a way that can literally stand on itself. And I hope Uranus North Node brings us that, you know. I will say though, like we're probably going to have to go through the swaps of these world powers and world energies coming together, similar to the Uranus return in the 30s with all those alliances that were made. They're going to affect the world because they're the infrastructures, they're the countries. And that's how Uranus works. It's kind of United Nations is very like Uranian. Everything's up for change. Everything's up for unpredictability. How do you navigate yourself and know what's best for you and take care of your personal life is what I highly advise on that note. But yeah.
Yeah, and I think, Dylon, when you're talking about like, oh, the countries are looking at the U.S. and they're just like, they've lost their touch, they're gluttonous and all this. And I just got this image of like a king who hasn't had war in a long time. Things have been good. He's like fat. He's got grease on his fingers.
His
He's eating
McDonald's, Big
chicken.
Macs all over his like floor. Like,
Yeah, it's like he's got everything catered to him. Life's
very
been
America.
easy, and it's made him soft. And I feel like this is something I've actually been kind of facing on a personal level. I'm like, gosh, you know, like obviously I've had personal issues in my life, but like for the most part, I feel like in this era that I've grown up in and kind of the way I was raised, I'm like, God, I feel like a little bitch sometimes, you know? I'm like, things have been too easy. And it's like,
transparency.
and I feel like, you know, people who grew like my grandma and I were talking the other day, and she was like, my dad during the Great Depression, he was a teacher, he was a bus driver, he taught every single ball sport. We grew our own food. Like we literally did everything in our power to survive, and they never complained. And it was just like what you did. And I'm just thinking about myself on a personal level, like how I've become maybe like lazy or complacent or entitled without like consciously thinking it, but just, oh, I only want like the best and I only want this and that. And I feel like Taurus wants us to have the best, but it also wants us to put in the sweat equity. It wants us to know that like you have to earn things. Like things are sometimes like the best in life when they are hard, when they come because you fucking worked your ass off to get them. And so I feel like also in this process of change and evolution is maybe asking ourselves where we have gone soft, not just as a nation, but as an individual, because we comprise the nation. So where have we gone soft, not, you know, really had like purpose and meaning and like, you know, really lived according to our values. We're just fucking on TikTok and we're just trying to get famous because we want to be famous. And like, can we like really get serious about our lives and work hard for the things that we value and truly want, and to value things that have substance? And I feel like if we cannot do that as individuals and as a nation, the overturning is going to be just like that, and I do kind of feel like we are shifting out of power, which we don't have total control over what's going to happen to everyone, but we have control over ourselves. And so to self-reflect about where you might have become a little bitch could be helpful. So
I love that talk so much. Like, one, beautiful. Two, I just thought of Mars and Taurus. We're going to be forced to take it slow.
Yeah.
We're going to be forced to leave this life of conveniency that is just so easy peasy. We don't even appreciate or value beautiful things anymore. Can you imagine a farmer 100 years ago working hard and getting its crops and savoring every bite of a corn, like just something basic, but like so profound to life in your family and everything itself. And today we just like, yeah, that's good, convenience, throw it away. And people don't even want to create value. And just like you're saying, this TikTok generation, look, I ain't trying to invalidate you, but the world don't need 100 of your cat funny videos to contribute to this planet while you consume gas and food while the world slaves away in poverty and famine while we think that's contributing to the world. That's embarrassing for America. I don't care if I trigger you. That's the truth.
I love cat videos.
I know, I love them too. But but my point is, like, what do you actually, America doesn't make anything anymore. We're not even doing anything to give back the value of the gifts that we've been given or the things that we've received and revalued it. This is the Pluto return, getting down to the brass tacks. What are you even making? Why do you even holding this, like this Capricorn rule is the top of things we've achieved through dedication. And I think America's looking at what are we getting what we deserve at this point. So I'm not invalidating, creating doomsday or like attacking anything. It's just like, that needs to be reconciled with, because just so many people, like, it's just like, no, I'll just have someone else pay for it.
We want something for nothing, or we want something for very little. And it's like the entitlement and expectation, I think, is very unconscious, but it's been very ingrained in our society because of how easy things have been. Oh, 2-day delivery, like, and then you start to expect it. Why is my Amazon here a week later?
I totally can imagine people reviewing, like, it got here 3 days. I waited. It's just ruined my wedding. Whatever the heck.
No, even better than that is the emails you get when it's gonna be late. It's like Amazon is like, apologize. Oh, we're so sorry. I literally have an email. I was like, I don't give a fuck if it's a day later. I'm not kidding. I could read the email. It's like, we are so sorry for the inconvenience of like blah, blah, blah. And it's like, bro, are we really that?
The problem here is that we are disconnected from the source, because who is dropping that package off? They are like almost slave labor, running the fuck around to get that at every doorstep, working well into the night. I see those Amazon drivers and I'm like, it's like 8-9 o'clock at night. I'm like, why are they still out?
Yeah.
And it's just like, we're disconnected from the fact that like the farmer made the corn, and so like he's connected to that process, and so he values it, and we're disconnected from the foundational process of what made that thing or what goes into that thing. And so that's where the entitlement comes from, because we don't have empathy or like context to understand the value of a 2-day delivery and what that does to Betty, who has 6 kids and works till 12 p.m. or 12 a.m.
I know. Gosh, that was a good finisher. I love it. So you have Venus and Taurus, so maybe you can relate with this. But what I recognize is Venus and Taurus wants to savor the food. The finest wines age the longest. They use the best materials and waited the longest to get the best harvest of the things that truly matter. I know you're vegan, but like even the best meat is taken care of and paved and like loved, if you will. If you like, I would hope that's the case. But like, the finest quality of things took a lot of dedication and long pervading value. And that's what Taurus represents. Take your time, slow roast it, cook it well. Don't throw it in a microwave and think it's going to satisfy you, because you don't care about it. And that's something that's we are overdue at remembering as a society. This is why both fall positions, Mars and Uranus suck in this position, are coming on the North Node. It's like, hey, you don't even value taking your time, how enriching this could be, and how much more positive, enriching, and beautiful this process could be by slowing the F down. And do you even give a damn? Do you care about it? So
something I just thought about is like eating out. and the concept of just eating whatever food is provided there on the menu. And then lately, the past few years, I've been cooking a lot lately, just cooking.
Same.
And I've even told Ricky this before. I'm like, I cook the best food. Like, I cook the best food for me.
No
Lies.
canola oil.
Nobody's gonna make me more satisfied than myself.
exactly what you
and
want.
I honor the process of cooking whatever it is I'm making, and it's gonna be different. I'm definitely not gonna get it anywhere at any restaurant the way I make it. And even though it's a process, as she was saying, to acknowledge the process of things, and then you appreciate the whatever it is, more so, it is absolutely true. Like, if that means, like, we're not eating out much because the economy is downturning or whatever, it actually can bring people together. You can start cooking at home. There's so many things you can do to kind of, in the chaos, to like change or make an adjustment that actually feels a lot better. It's kind of like the electricity goes out and you're like, there's nothing to do, and you pull out the deck of cards you have that you hadn't pulled out in a while, and you play cards with your family, and like,
strangely,
that means
it's
everything.
It's like way more connected than everyone at their phone. Like, doesn't even give a F at the movie
Right.
theater or whatever.
And I know, we got
no
like a couple
connection.
minutes, but some of the things that I've been thinking about personally is I've been on the phone with Ricky talking about this too. If you can't get the hint, I talked to Ricky about it quite a bit. But
about the entire planet.
Yeah.
And society.
And I was talking to him about buying land and just being like, hey man, like we should actually have land and grow just like a massive garden and have animals and agriculture, and like, how much does a calf cost? We're meat eaters, so
Can
it's
we
like,
stop with the killing of cows, guys?
oh my gosh. Okay. Well, we started
Ricky's,
talking
like,
about
triggered.
being,
We'll show
being
you Animal
realistic
Planet,
about
and then
farming.
we'll move on.
Yeah. Just watch Animal Planet for like a while. But yeah, like we were thinking about raising animals, having horses, like
I'm
just what that
ethical.
value. And he went and saw some horses and recently, and it's just like, that is value. Like, that is the real, the excitement of life, and then of course, even to offend her some more, which was like, I even was talking about, I was like, I wonder what hunting is like. I actually have never really done that, and so we were talking about hunting recently.
out.
And
I'm just kidding.
yeah, and but that's like the most organic way to actually go out there. You're scavenging, you're camping, and you go and you have a tag, and it's through the whole Wildlife Association in Colorado, and you go and you hunt an elk, and then you bring this elk or whatever, this animal from the wilderness to your home. Like, it's the most organic thing you could possibly do. It's what people did all the time. And I was thinking, like, dude, that could feed us for 6 months. And with food shortages and food processing plants burning down, which I can get
Give
into.
them ideas, bro. I'm
Yeah.
just kidding.
I'm thinking, like, dude, well, why don't we just hunt for our food, grow our own food? Like, everything about it is actually exciting, and it's what I want to do. It's like, it's not even just like, it's an inconvenience, I gotta go hunt an elk. Like, no, I'm like, that's exciting. That's kind of cool. Like, I'd love to go camping and have a guy's trip or whatever. Like,
you got to get back to literally the evolution of Homo sapiens before this postmodern era. And just to be honest, I think I want to fully agree with the vegan community. The way that we process animals today is completely inhumane and wrong. But all animals are going to have a way of recycling energy. And I'm not trying to validate this, but if you had to like go hunt, I would find much more loving, compassion, energy in potentially hunting one animal than someone heartlessly not even connecting with that animal and its slightest bit of connection. So I'm just trying to give one perspective on just like, it is that we're not even connected to that anymore, that we've disconnected ourselves potentially from our own essence. Because no one, like, does people farm and hunt anymore? And that reminds you of what we've done as humans to survive for thousands of years. So I'm just bringing that up just to connect it to what Dylan's saying about, like, and this might pertain to us, Courtney may or may not, like, I'm not trying to offend anyone here, but whatever's your jam. But like, at the same time, it's like, what is to the essence of like, what is raw and natural? Because we've almost like artificialized everything. 90% of your grocery store is full of crap. And that's not a joke.
But what is unique about this situation is that Uranus is also about innovation. So being in the sign of Taurus, we also see like unique food innovation. So like our approach to agriculture and having different machines and different ways of producing crops and monocrops, all of that really evolves when Uranus is in Taurus. So it's like there's this weird dichotomy that we're kind of hinting at between, let's go back to the basics. Let's make it simple. Let's be more connected with the process and the source. And we are also going to be evolving. We're also going to be having to find new technological solutions to the ways that we fucked up from the last technological solutions and like deplete all the resource, like
True.
the minerals and things like that in the land. So we're going to have to find like these new solutions. And so it's going to be this interesting mix of like modern with the old, and yeah, not so cut and dry.
I still find and I'm a big advocate for green energy, but I find like all those kind of processes are evolved from here on out. So yeah, we were thinking of like, even though the dichotomy of things that we've done need to be like re-evolved, or maybe even like, take a step back on it, like just like Courtney's saying, we might have technological advances in the things that might need things. So like agriculture might get an evolution to it. I'm really a big advocate for green energy. So I was kind of like thinking, there might be a lot of more profound distributions in that field. I don't know. I definitely foresee electric cars or hybrid cars probably becoming more of a thing. But
Dylan, didn't you say that it's like they're not? Were you the one who told me that?
I'll say something.
Stop doing combustion engines or something like that.
So,
I just think I'm going to let you take it in a second.
Yeah.
But I think all those things that are doing more naturalistically, that's just what I'm kind of feeling with using the raw elements. I just think is going to be much more profoundly connected to our culture,
Yeah.
And I think there might be some raw distributive goods. So like, God forbid there was a huge economical crisis. I think we might be using physical things to distribute that, if it's like little silver coins or whatever it is. I'm not really thinking that so much, but I think we need to get back to like raw material and how we evolve using that raw material. Stop making apples bougie. Just get back to how we make more bougie apples.
How the basic, like the raw materials, the thing that we used to make stuff out of is now like innovative. Like, oh, we're gonna like an eco home made of stone. It's like, okay, why is this like up and coming?
Pillows. I was doing research on pillows lately. Do you know that most pillows aren't even made of cotton anymore? They use and it's great stuff, but it's like polyfiber, optic gel, lucid, latex stuff, latex gel, and you're like, there's no fucking pillows made of just like cotton.
Okay.
Like
it's funny you even say that because I've been thinking about bedding recently. It goes off everything. But okay, my girlfriend Casey, she got linen sheets.
Oh,
and
that's
she's
what I
been
have.
saving for this $250 investment,
They're amazing.
And yeah, and she's like, I was like, what's up with linen? Why are you, what's going on? And she started to explain to me the frequency of linen and how wonderful this but it's been used for centuries,
This is linen.
like. That makes sense. So obviously you don't know, but I was kind of profoundly like, oh really? And she's like, yeah. And she's like, well, we're gonna sleep in the little sheets, and I just got them, and I was like, okay. And then not kidding, I literally crashed out in a position I never sleep in, which is like this, like ridiculous. That. I'm just like, I just got stuck with my arm underneath. Like I don't know how I fell asleep. Like how you fall asleep normal. And I was like, wait, these linen sheets are legit.
They're the bomb, and you don't even know what faces you're making.
And I started looking up stuff like Egyptian cotton, and then there's like this feud between like linen or cotton and like real cotton, not this whatever he's saying. But like, yeah, it's innovative, but which Ricky is like in a box on this. Like he understands how some innovations are just too much. Like I like the basic this and that, and he always talks about that stuff like that.
I have this little bias where there's some years where we've advanced, and then it's like it's just trendy to advance, so they just throw like the most off the wall thing, and we're calling it innovative. And I can't some of that's good, and then some of that's Uranus.
Remember,
take a step back, but sometimes you gotta call it was like, this was good, don't break it. Like this is bomb. Like, what are we trying to make now? Like,
do y'all remember 3D movies? Like, you remember when y'all would like get the 3D glasses at the theater?
What about
and
the
then wear
4D?
those?
Dude, I had to. I went to a 4D movie in Mexico, and the seat was like and like spraying shit, and I literally got so sick I was about to vomit. I just sit in the aisle where people walk up. I was like, "Fuck this technology, man."
So that's what I mean. I think what happened to those, right? I mean, Mexico 4D. I mean, that's the next level. But even like 3D movies, right? Like it's innovating, but like it's just you're running out of ideas, and you just full splurge on something, and it's just like, no, this is not the right thing. It doesn't feel right. And And I think I really reflect on that. Like the 3D glasses, like you're wearing them and then you're like, I've got a headache after every single movie I watch, you know? And I think a lot of people were they stopped buying those movie tickets, and and that's why beautiful markets can speak language, you know? Like, I'm not going to buy the 3D. I'm going to just buy the standard. And people started to shift. And then these 3D glasses and the ones they were like wiping them at the front, you know, here you go. It's just like, dude, this ain't cool. Actually, you're innovating backwards. Like, it's like, how about we just stick with standard, like regular?
Improve the standard and make that as good as it can.
Yeah.
And maybe just put their energy towards other things.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that there are massive jumps in innovation, but it's like occurs in pockets of time, like the refrigerator, you know, like, dude, like no one would be like, let's go back to ice chunks. Like no one wants that. But like then there are like pointless innovations, and sometimes you just have to test stuff out to figure out what's going to stick and what's going to impact society and what's not. And so I feel like we can see some more of that dabbling. But with the foundational stuff that we've been talking about.
Yeah, it's like an air fryer, you know, like that's a great innovation. Like,
dude,
what's that?
What did we do before air fryers?
Yeah, microwaves. So I wanted to mention this before anything
people.
Is like, so what to start with? I guess I'll start with the EU for a sec, because 3 days ago, the European Union voted that natural gas and nuclear energy are now climate friendly. There has been a movement in Germany, especially, has been the innovator since 2000, like year 2000. They have been the innovator in like, we're going wind, solar fully, but then they buy gas and oil from Russia. And there's been this issue geopolitically that Germany is going to side with Russia in case there's some kind of geopolitical conflict in the future. And here we are, where Russia's invaded Ukraine, and Germany is a part of this NATO group, and they're supposed to be sanctioning and they're supposed to be condemning Russia. But in the back end, they're like, hey, but we still need gas. You know, we still need all the things, right? And Russia's at a point.
Their cars are still combustion.
Right.
Yeah.
And so like Russia's at a point where they're like, well, we're going to go ahead and like let you freeze to death in Germany, literally. Like, we're not going to give you natural gas for your heating. And so Germany's kind of like, they're like we're backing off of like, you know, putting all this effort on trying to destroy Russia economically. So you have like a lot of this geopolitical stuff going on. And that's why the EU went ahead and said, okay, wait, no, we can start building nuclear again. France, for example, has a bunch of nuclear power, and Germany buys the nuclear power from France.
Interesting.
So it's like, but Germany says they're leading the innovation for like wind and solar, for example, but they're like, clearly they still need help from other nations to actually sustain. And maybe again, there's a future where like, oh, there's no combustion engine anymore, and there's all these things start changing. However, when the EU voted, okay, natural gas and, you know, nuclear are legit again, you know, we're not going to like stop. We're going to make sure we do that. The reason why that's happening is because the secret is out, is that some of these more sustainable or energy cycles have been, they're not powering the level of power. They're only powering 30-40% in Germany, which is a tremendous amount, which is awesome, right? Like that's supplement, a huge supplement of energy is coming from renewables in Germany. However, they're still buying the bulk of their energy from other countries or trying to get it from other places. And so again, it's going back to the basics. It's like, wait a second, we're like innovating, we're doing the 3D glasses in the energy world, but reality, we actually should just go back to like some of these elements that have been useful for generations and just continue to do this while we start re-innovating in totally different things. And I don't know if y'all are interested in this ever, but there are like quantum physics and other like energy cycles as well that are like super innovative and very like other sciences that are going to be bringing and powering like fusion energy. There's also like, are the aliens going to give us things that we need? Anyways, yeah. So, and I think that there was that. And then right now, for example, more, again, attacks on the foundations and going back into what people are interested in. All of a sudden, people are interested in what's foundational, right? We were talking about land and stuff and getting all this stuff. Well, I think that this in the Netherlands, the EU also voted that the nitrous oxide is going to be limited, and that farmers can't farm as much as they have in the past. Even though the Netherlands, by the way, if anybody didn't know this was a fun fact me and him learned this week, which was that the Netherlands is the second largest producer of food in the world, exporter of food. Yeah,
they're
apparently,
so small.
Yeah,
family
the
Netherlands.
The Dutch are just all farmers. Like they're just farming all the time.
When you say that, it blows me away because we live throughout Texas and you just drive fields and fields and fields, but it's all cotton.
Yeah.
And you like think about like, wait,
It's
Can't
like
eat
we
any
can't
of that.
eat it. So yeah, and so these new restrictive powers have come up from the European Union saying, oh yeah, you can't, by the way, do what you've been doing for generations and generations and generations. So these tractors, well, these farmers, not tractors, but farmers in tractors all started protesting at food processing plants and all over the city, all over the Netherlands. So like they started to just basically, okay, y'all don't want us to work and do stuff and pay for our stuff, then we're going to protest. And there's these massive protests happening around this. And again, it's this attack on the foundations of things like food and energy that have will create poverty, and that's kind of what we're experiencing now. And like again, I am always, of course, open to innovation, and these kinds of things can lead to a lot of innovation. And you do have to have a society that's built off of that, and people get desperate and they start thinking, wow, how do we innovate out of this? How do we create out of this? And I think that's kind of the stuff that I wanted to hit was just some of these major elements happening in current events.
I wanted to tie that in really nicely to the full moon that's happening in Aquarius, like on August 11th. So, kind of during this phase
About a
of
month
Uranus and the North Node and Mars. Yeah. So that will still kind of be going on to like a lesser orb degree, but this full moon is going to be conjunct Saturn and squaring the North Node, Uranus and Mars. So I feel like this element here of like restriction and people challenging, or like authority challenging the way that we maybe want to create change, or even want to create, like, go back to the basics, and that is the change. And like basically kind of everything we talked about, like there can be these other powers that act as like a thwarting mechanism of like, no, actually you can't do this, or we're not going to make this easy. And it doesn't necessarily just have to be government. It could be something in our personal lives where we're like, all right, I'm ready to make this change. But it's like, okay, first we have to end this thing in our life, or we have to quit this job, or we have to do this and that. There's going to be some level of like a barrier that we might have to push through in order to actually achieve the result that we're looking for.
I laughed about the 4D Mexico thing for a second. I just can't stop thinking about that. Okay.
I was wanting to look into that full moon basically because when I recognize that it'll probably be with Saturn, yep, squaring Uranus. Yeah, I definitely think that's a huge breakthrough transformation kind of time. I don't really fear that as much as it would be something to really open ourselves up to what really brings us purpose. Yeah, Mercury and Virgo and dignity, trining it right with the North Node. That's a karmic day. Holy smokes. August 11th. You're scared of that day?
It definitely reminds me of what Dylan is talking about, though. Like, these people are trying to progress in some sense, and then there's like an authority that's like, actually, we're limiting your potential here. Like, you can't own all this gold, even though you've kind of done all this to like get it. You know?
I do find there's going to be some dedicated times. If this is on a personal chart right now, though, the things that you've been dedicating to are actually going to start showing their colors, and that might be having to make big pivots. Kind of, if I had to give an analogy to Germany's aspect, they've done a lot of infrastructure, but they still have they've been doing that maybe for their energy resource, but for their transportational energy, it's still all in oil where they've left themselves reliant. There's either actually solving a problem there or deciding. There's a decision energy with this full moon Aquarius. And I love full moon Aquarius, by the way. It's one of my favorite full moons. It's changed my life 3 times. But like this one is Richter scale like 10 on, but it got to be something that is really true and purposeful to bringing you a better life that you're connecting into, you're rooting into, you're deciding to make this your future. And there's going to be a big element with that, with kind of Saturn squaring Mars. Yeah, there's some tension. I won't lie. You might need to push it into this area, like, you know. But as far as collectively speaking, it seems like decisions got to be made. You got to go connect to something. And if it brings the heart, the connection, and the value, and you can leave away the feelings that it's like a death grip of insecurity, I'm not going to lie. I'm excited for that day. It just might look maybe not how we want it to look. It might upset other people on what we choose to do for ourselves. So.
Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Well, I was
No,
just
you
gonna
go
mention,
ahead.
You know, so we've been talking a lot about, like I mentioned, what me and him have been discussing, and me and him discussing things that deal with foundations
Isn't
and
it
like
him
food.
and I? Just kidding.
Isn't it?
Just fucking.
Him and I.
It is.
Me and him. But yeah, so we've been talking and discussing about these various things, and if that is foreign to you, like you have not been having these conversations with your immediate family and immediate friends, you need to start kind of like, I think we should start that dialogue around, hey, like, do you have food? Like a good amount of food, where like if something were to happen, perhaps you'd be okay for a month, or are you going to come knocking on my door? And we've been talking a lot about that. And it's very true. Like food scarcity and insecurity is a thing. It is just going to be temporary. I do believe that very much like the lockdowns and the things that happened in the pandemic, we're going to be, and I don't mean to be panicking people, but I'm just getting real with people, is that we will be experiencing shortages in the areas that we think are set and like foundational. I'm not even saying that based on the astrology. I'm saying that based off of what I know is coming. Mm-hmm. And I think that it does align with the astrology as well. And so I just wanted to say, like, if I'd feel like remorse if I did not speak straight and clear. If you do not have food for at least a month or 2 months, like food stored, legit.
Like
and
rice, beans, something, whatever
yeah,
it is, non-perishables.
Like, seriously. And if you're not already growing a garden, you might be a little bit on the later stages of the season. But like, if you don't have a garden or anything, like you need to start thinking about that as well.
Community garden if you live in an apartment.
Yeah. And pets. Make sure your pets are fed and have more food for your pets as well. The little basic things that you think are just going to be at the grocery store every week are going to actually start to be less and less and less.
It's not going to be about toilet paper.
I was just going to say, it ain't going to be toilet paper and Clorox, okay? We're talking like the necessities. So my advice to you is start to buy just a little bit more at the grocery stores, and start to kind of talk to your friends and family, because more importantly than anything, you need to start talking with your community, maybe even your neighbors if you've never even met them before, especially the person in an apartment living across the street or living across from you. You know, start to talk to people and start to build community, because you need to you need to have reliable human beings in your life during this transitional time that we're going through. And I'm telling you, it will be this fall and winter. We will start the food processing plants that are burning down mysteriously and stuff. That's not even hitting us yet. It's not. And so the third world, by the way, is coming. They're already way beyond starvation over there. They've just announced more starvation numbers last week. On the United Nations just announced how many more people are going to starve to death. Those people are coming to the first world. So Europe and in America and Canada, like, they're coming here because we screwed up their whole system down there. So like, really and honestly, like, you need to get connected with some people. And if y'all have more suggestions, but like, you really do. I'm not trying to get to a panic level, but if you're just prepared during this chaos, I think you're going to be much better off. And this is how I felt in 2020 when I told people things were going to shut down. I started buying a bunch of gold and silver, and I started buying Bitcoin, but I also started buying food. I still have storable food. But yeah, just wanted to kind of like let you guys in on that.
Go ahead.
You know, the funny thing is, when I share astrology, I want to realize that people need to take precedence over their mental processing. If I tell you one little thing and your brain goes, ooh, you know, like we need to keep your eye on the prize, bullseye. And with how astrology plays out is up to you to be the cast win. Like I say this, and I'll say it forever and ever and ever. You have all the stars aligned, but if you're sitting there watching Netflix, nothing's going to happen to you to some extent. I won't lie, though. I've been totally condoned with Dylon that I've looked at this as like the pandemic was like whatever. Because in some places, like, this is where, you know, we're going to have like all these planets go retrograde. And next year, we're going to have the North Node come into Aries. And that's a lot of like pushing forward for things that you need for yourself and making sure that you have what's valuable to you. And I'm sure when shit hits the fan, you're going to think just a bowl of rice is damn valuable, worth more than gold, you know, and to some extent. But I want people to really check in, because not everyone needs to play this out. I'll be straight honest. I had the best quarantine time of my life, while other people did not. That's how you choose to embrace on what shows up for you, because it's about your perspective that you're going to manifest from whatever the heck we tell you. So, but I agree with Dylon. on a factual planative place that things and resource are going to be shifting, are you going to have the reliancy to rely on yourself and value yourself enough to give yourself the raw things that you know that you need for yourself? This is leaving a codependent area of life, and we'll get even stronger by next year. Like I said, when Jupiter comes back into Aries and hits that North Node with Chiron, we're going to be healing a little bit of who we think we know who we are. But not to jump the gun too far, yeah. I also can say this, is that part of me has an optimism that things can be better for some people bigger in this time than ever before. Usually, most financiers will say when there's economical collapses and some people are getting screwed, it's also the best time to make investments and make money. And if you understand that principle of what someone thinks is valueless, that you find is valuable and you know what to do with it, can flip the script very strong for certain people. Maybe by basic principles. You go to the grocery store, go buy a green bell pepper. There's 200 seeds in there. Get creative. Because if you go buy it at Home Depot, you'll get 10 seeds for $4. No one's thinking so systematically on what can be possibly be done. So I'm just throwing a little example. If you catch my drift, figure stuff out for yourself that make you feel secure and stable.
And the more that you do have these resources and have kind of prepared, which Taurus is a lot about preparing and having our own like little nest egg and whatever that means for you, the less you'll be able. What?
Acorns for the winter.
Yeah, store your acorns, and the less you'll be able to be controlled and also like emotionally manipulated. Like the fear, that's how Hitler rose to power. It's like a fear that their families wouldn't get food on their table. And that's how things can get way out of hand. So just kind of circling back to have the power in your own hands, which Jupiter in Aries wants you to have. You basically just have to set yourself up for success. And we're telling you now, so you've been warned. And I just wanted to kind of finish off by saying that Uranus will return to this exact point, 18 degrees of Taurus, in April and May of 2023. So the things that we're kind of experiencing now might wrap up in a new and different way at that time. So you have some time now, you have some time then to take advantage of this energy of change, as well as getting really rooted into what you value, what you give meaning, and what you're pursuing, and how you're taking care of yourself and your loved ones. So that's pretty much all I wanted to say. Did you guys want to wrap it up with anything else?
I just want to thank y'all so much for dropping in and doing this whole like video, because all this content is just super fire, super valuable, super real, super what's happening in the present moment. I won't lie though, to the end of September though, we're getting into retrograde city for like 6 planets retrograde. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, including Chiron. Yeah, and to be honest with you, there's not a lot of momentum at that time. It's like super slow. So this is kind of the last kind of month for people to kind of like figure what they want out of life and then like sit with what's in your house. It's like just what you got, kind of thing. Like you made your order list, the time's up or whatever the heck. And I don't want to make it like that. It's not like there's time's up. It's not like anything's going to change, but make sure that you place yourself in a position, if you can connect with me, Dylon, Courtney, or however so, to something that matters and valuable for you, because this is the upgrade that we've all been waiting for actually. And if you can really see over that, you'll recognize that later after all this is said and done. So,
yeah. So, I think it's a great video. I mean, I hope you guys learned a lot from it, and I'm always gonna, hang out with them and share some insights, especially historically, and then like coming with like current events and things. If also, I mean, where you can find him as well as Instagram, you can find me as well. Just wanted to say that is you can just type my name. I'm Matrix Breakers. You can type that in, or you can just type in my name, which is Dylon, Dylon, and then my last name is Suggs, Suggs. So if you just type that on Facebook or Instagram, you can find me and you can follow me there. And so if you're interested in any things that we talked about or I talked about especially, I mean, you can obviously just follow the podcast because we cover all this stuff, all the things. And then we're hopefully going to maybe even launch our own podcast as like aside from this. So some exciting work.
Comment down below if you would actually be interested in a more personal podcast, because we've been kind of thinking about I mean, we get so like,
Several ideas.
yeah, just let us know if you'd be interested in something like not that it's not factual, but just has more maybe personality in it, and more like culture and stuff. So yeah.
Yeah. And you can catch me, Ricardo Zevert. My YouTube's called The Infinite Soul. You can catch me on Instagram. I'll send a link in the description below. Last name Zevaert. And thank you so much, Courtney, for having us on.
Thanks, guys. Yeah, this is Will's Bloom and Astrology is Real podcast. You guys know where to find me. Hope you guys have a great day. Bye.